Welcome back, children. In the previous class, you have seen that Pope Julius had given the task of painting frescoes of important events from the Bible on the walls and ceilings of Sistine Chapel. Now, let's see the rest of the chapter. I don't want any unpleasantness at this stage, the Pope murmured to himself. He said, I don't want any unpleasantness or unhappy things at this stage because only the last judgment is left over. He had not forgotten the time when Michelangelo was carving the crucifixion. When Michelangelo was carving the crucifixion, some unpleasant things happened. What's the meaning of carving? The act of using tools to shape something from a material by scraping away portions of that material is called carving. And he was carving the crucifixion in wood, not on rock or anything. In wood, he was carving the crucifixion for the Church of the Holy Spirit. And he had come excitedly to Julius, saying he had found just the right model. He was in search of a model for Jesus' face for the crucifixion. And he excitedly came telling that he had found a model for the face of Jesus. The model was a dead man. Who was the model? A dead man. The Pope remembered ruefully, or with the sadness, he is still remembering how the funeral had been held up for 12 hours. For 12 hours, they kept the body for him to take the sketch of it. Now, the unblessedness he refers to here is about a time when Michelangelo came to the Pope declaring he had found his model for the crucifixion in wood for the Church of the Holy Spirit. The model he had found had been the face of a dead man, and at the insistence of the artist, the funeral had to be delayed for 12 hours. The Pope did not want a repetition of such a situation. Why? He said, I don't want any unpleasantness at this stage. Now, Bramante. The Pope thought now. Yes, Bramante was a great painter too. Bramante was also a great painter. But some specialities there for Michelangelo. He, unlike Michelangelo, that means he here, Bramante, unlike Michelangelo, proudly proclaimed that he conjured faces from his imagination. He created faces from his imagination, he said. But even the Pope had to admit this. Bramante's faces looked as though they had emerged from a common mold. Almost all the faces had some similarity. According to Medici, all Bramante's characters bore a strong family resemblance. Almost all the faces had some resemblance with each other. From Pope Julius had no choice but to dismiss Bramante and approach Michelangelo. Since all the faces are same, means similarity is there. It will not. Judas cannot be just like Jesus' face. Judas' face should not be. So like that, there should be distinction or differences. 4 years ago, Michelangelo had started painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. He would lie for hours beneath the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, staring at it and muttering to himself. 4 years before, Michelangelo started to paint the chapel. Now, he used to lie down for so many hours beneath the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, staring at it and muttering to himself because he wanted to get faces for the characters which are there to be depicted. In those lime-coated brick and mud walls, Angelo was searching for faces. The walls of the chapel were made of mud and brick and were coated with lime. There he was searching for faces. The faces of Jesus, the Virgin Mary and Judas. These 3 main faces he has to get. He could see their flesh and blood forms, physical forms, but their faces are not seen. Only their flesh and blood forms he can see, but their faces, he mumbled, their faces are buried deep in the verses of the Bible. He is not in a position to get the faces of those Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and Judas. They elude me. They elude me means they remain hidden from me. He groaned. He expressed with great despair. They continue to elude. They are eluding me from me. That means they are remaining hidden from me. They are keeping themselves. Their faces are hidden from me like anything. The Pope had begun to doubt Michelangelo's sanity. Means the Pope had started to doubt about the mental status of Michelangelo. Once he stood very close and overheard Michelangelo repeating passages from the Bible. So whenever he was getting opportunity, he used to recite or repeat the verses from the Holy Bible. What exactly are you doing, Angelo? The Pope asked curiously. When he heard Angelo repeating the verses, he asked him, "What are you doing?" What? Angelo had looked up startled. He was in a very great surprise that time because he did not expect Pope that time. "Oh, I'm trying to unravel these verses. I'm trying to unravel these verses means I'm trying to discover the meaning of these verses which are there in the Bible. Maybe then I'll find the faces. If I discover the meaning of these verses in the Bible, I'll be able to find the faces." There was a hint of despair in Michelangelo's voice. He was not happy at all. The Pope understood Angelo's frustration, his disappointment. The Pope could understand. Julius remembered how, during one of his inspections, he had seen that Angelo had drawn several sketches of the angel Gabriel. Once, when he went to see what all things are happening, he saw several sketches of Gabriel drawn by Michelangelo. "How did you see Gabriel?" he asked. "Yeah, he doesn't belong to this world either. Angel Gabriel doesn't belong to this world. Then, how did you sketch out Angel Gabriel's figure?" Angelo had looked up to meet the Pope's eyes. "I heard his voice in the Old Testament," he said. "I heard his voice in the Old Testament." And how he heard his voice? When he was reciting or repeating the verses from the Bible. And the Bible contains two parts, that is the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament contains the sacred scriptures of the Jewish faith, and the New Testament contains the deeds and teachings of Jesus Christ. Then you must have heard God's voice too. So if you have heard Angel Gabriel's voice, surely you must have heard God's voice also. The Pope had joked. "I heard his silence." Angelo's words were just very abruptly, very briefly, he said, "I heard his silence only." But the Pope had known without the shadow of a doubt that he had chosen the right man for the task. The Pope had known without the shadow of a doubt. That means, without the shadow of a doubt means that there were absolutely no second thoughts regarding Michelangelo being the right person for the job he had been commissioned to. So no other person will be able to do this task. Only Michelangelo can do it. That's what Pope Julius felt. Eccentric, he had told the Vatican Committee. Eccentric means strange and unusual person. Angelo is a very strange and unusual person. But he is the only one who can paint the Sistine Chapel. Even though he is very strange and unusual, but he is the only one who can paint the Sistine Chapel. And he told the Vatican Committee this. What is the meaning of Vatican Committee? A committee of Catholic priests convened by the Pope for specific purpose is the Vatican Committee. Michelangelo had found Mary with the greatest of ease. Very easily he was able to find face for Mother Mary. It had happened long ago, the day he saw his mother carrying 2 pots of water strung from a bamboo stick on her shoulder. It had happened long ago, many years before, when his mother was carrying a couple of pots strung together with a bamboo stick filled with water on her shoulder. He found the face for Mary in her. He had thought that the woman who had borne Christ in her womb would have been like his mother. The woman who had borne Christ in her womb would have been like his mother, just as thin and frail. So Mother Mary also must be thin and frail just as his mother. That's what he felt. He remembered watching his mother with unblinking eyes as she warmed the water for his father's bath. Now also he is remembering how he looked at his mother without even blinking his eyes once when she was warming the water for his father's bath. Her face reflected the warmth of the roaring fire, flushed, burning like molten gold. Her face was so bright, just like a molten gold. And Michelangelo had immediately returned to his study to sketch that face again and again. He felt that face will be a very important one. So he went to his room and sketched out the face again and again so many times. But that was a long, long time ago. Michelangelo remembered that they were living in Bologna that time. In your next session, I'll discuss the rest of the lesson. Thank you.